everybody. Welcome back to TARTLEcast. We're here to talk about banning the scan. Ban the scan. New York City issue going on here with facial recognition. As you can see, we have their, from Amnesty International, we have their website up. Ban the scan. Do you want your face to be used to track you? No. Not me.
No, not me either, yeah.
And that's only one function of it. They're trying to emotionally capture you on it, but the greater function here is how the scanning of the facial geometry essentially lacks in the algorithm's accuracy.
Yeah, and I think and what we can speak to is the two main issues. Number one is their machine learning.
Yep.
And how their machine learning is racially profiling. And then number two, and we'll talk about that, and they have that up here for brown and black people and other minority groups. And then number two, which I think is the most important, more than any of them, is making sure and understanding the intent of the user. So what is law enforcement using this? Are they using it to track dissent? Or are they using it to track crime? Big difference.
Yeah.
You know, like they were talking in this article I thought was really interesting, Alex. They were talking about ICE, you know, as far as like you trying to find people that were, you know, illegal aliens, you know, so-called illegal aliens, whatever, which is a funny word to me.
I don't aliens
like that.
are funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like who's illegal and who's not.
Yeah,
and like,
whose borders
I went
that?
5 miles over on the speed limit. That's illegal.
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to better themselves.
You're a couple changes in the genome away from being illegal.
So they used it to track people and then to see where other groups were at and then to be able to track them. Terrorism, I get. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's great if you can have, you know,
if you already have a picture of the guy's face and you know who you're looking for.
Yes, exactly.
But if you don't know who you're looking for and you take this presupposed idea that's been imprinted into the algorithm to say, look for this type of person.
Yes, now
this
we have
type of person.
Right.
Well, how do you define that type? So now it's not the fact that the facial recognition is wrong. It's the fact that it's being used to profile inappropriately. Mm-hmm. Yes, there is data showing that maybe someone of a specific minority group may be committing a certain amount of crimes in a specific area, so you need to look for that. But what you find is that people that have never committed a crime, ever, the facial recognition is choosing them because their skin color is black, because the algorithm, the facial geometry, is not picking up on it properly, the shadows and the context of the face, as opposed to a white male. So the white male, it may be scanning them, but they're less likely to be flagged as a risk so that the cops can go out there and frisk that person whenever precinct they're in, as opposed to someone that may be black.
Yes. And one of the things that they talk about, and I want to get into, is the weaponizing by law enforcement against marginalized communities. So this is really interesting. This was by, I want to make sure I get the Matt Mohammadi. I'm probably pronouncing his last name. Sorry, Matt. New Yorkers should be able to go out about their daily lives without being tracked by facial recognition. Other major cities across the U.S. have already banned facial recognition. So we know Portland and a couple other big cities have.
Yeah.
They also said this. For years, the NYPD has used facial recognition to track tens of thousands of New Yorkers, putting New Yorkers of color at risk of false arrest and police violence.
Yeah, put someone at risk. So the algorithm, if it is biased, which it is automatically going to put someone in a bucket that says you need to worry about these people. When the person's like, I've never done anything wrong. I've paid all my bills. I've never harmed a fly.
How many times have we talked about putting people in buckets, Alex?
We say this all the time. The second you define for somebody, here's the difference here. Remember you said it was fine with terrorism? So let's talk about this. The second you define someone in a bucket, okay, you're removing the right that they have the free will and the choice of them to define who they are with their own ego characteristics perspective of what reality is for them. Now, for a terrorist, they're a terrorist because they've created some part of terror. They've done something that is a bad act towards the greater group, causing mass fear. That person has defined themselves publicly as a terrorist.
Yes.
They put themselves in their bucket. Why is it that you are allowing the free will of a terrorist to choose to be a terrorist, but any other random Joe Schmo on the street, you're going to put him in a bucket that you think is better suited for him?
Yeah, and that is huge, and that's what I wanted to. Whether you agree with facial recognition, we should have cameras in cities or not, I'm not so concerned about that as much as I am concerned about that ability to be able to allow them through their own free will and their actions.
Yeah.
Their actions should dictate surveillance.
Yeah, the action should dictate surveillance, not surveillance dictating an action upon them.
Yeah, like saying, oh, let me follow this person because they're black, and let me see in this nice neighborhood that they're in, let's watch them for 10 minutes and see if they commit a crime or if they're up to something shady.
Yeah, and so then you got, these big brother eyes on you, but it's the data, right? Mm-hmm. It's what data have you put into that algorithm to feed it that says, wait a minute, red flag alert. This person, which we say is in this bucket, we need to go find them. And then you're pushing people around, and that becomes more of an aggressive police state because it's not about the cops showing up when a crime is being committed.
Right.
It's saying, we think a crime is going to be committed. Let's show up right now.
Yeah, Jumondy Williams, a New York City public advocate, said this, and I listened to this statement, and I want you to talk about this. Facial recognition is just the latest version of bias-based policing, a digital stop and frisk.
Of course it is. You remember, after 9/11, anybody that was Muslim or whatever it might be, if you weren't a hijab, you're going to get stopped.
Right.
Regardless.
Yeah, at the airport.
Doesn't matter if you've been a good person your entire life.
Right.
Doesn't matter if Sunni or Shiite, they're stopping you. So when you look at the context of this, is now you've elevated the efficiency of profiling by using a machine. But the thing is your profiling biased? Or is it true profiling depending on how the person has defined themselves through the crime they've committed or whatever characteristics they choose to live by?
Yeah, they did a federal study that showed that there were between 10 and 100 times. So think 10 to 100 times more false matches among black women than white men.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, that's an issue with the software and the people. But why is it still used?
Yes.
You're still using the same horrible algorithm, pulling in the same bad data and then applying it to real life.
But this is the problem with data in general.
This happens to everything. You see it in marketing.
Yes.
You see it with how large corporate businesses make their decisions. It's all this bad data coming in on this biased algorithm that has no truth to it, where you're defining what the world looks like when the rest of the world's like, what are you doing? There's 7 billion of us and 1 million of you. You're nothing. You're a pimple on a gnat's ass. And you're defining what the gnat looks like.
Yeah, it's the proverbial, and we talked about the software, it's a proverbial garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And we'll spend millions and millions of dollars, even billions, on these machine learning algorithms, and then we're just pumping that machine. It's not the machine learning is agnostic. It's the data that we're giving it.
That's correct.
It's our bias that we're feeding it.
And if we don't focus on specific human rights and perspectives that are truthful, that value an individual's free will and how they define themselves as a human right to do so. This is me. This is who I am. This is how I'm going to define it. Until I break a law within a society I've chosen to live in, it's not for you to say, I belong in a specific bucket. It's not for you to apply your biased machine learning algorithm to me and then redefine my life through force, if need be, to, stop and frisk me. Because your bad data saying this is what needs to be focused on. It's just wrong. It doesn't align with human nature and how humans are supposed to be treated. Again, we're elevating the technology, but missing all the aspects of how it should be elevating a human being. If not, it's separating us. It makes us, it disunifies us.
Does this technology elevate humanity?
It does if used properly.
Yes.
If you're really using it with an awesome intent that's non-biased, non-dogmatic, non-racial profiling and allows people to define who they are, yeah, of course. Are they consenting to it? How about this? For the city of New York, did they send out a memo to everybody living in New York? Do you consent to this? Did you poll or ask these people? Was that a part of your survey? Over here in New Mexico, they asked the people of Rio Rancho, do you want speeding cameras? They're all like, no, hell no. And they didn't put them in. But it seems like New York City just did whatever the hell they wanted to do.
As most municipalities that feel like they have this, and this is a problem that we see in government transparency. And I don't want to get into number 6 of our big 7.
Well, that's government and corporate transparency. There was no transparency in that choice. What do you think? Because there's a security threat, it just gives you the right to do whatever the heck you want? It's about the people there that want to feel secure. So if this is something they're asking for, well, then that is the decision of the whole group of people there in New York City, not for a few select people in a specific area that no one's ever had any contact with to decide for the 16 million people that live in New York how they should live their lives and how they should be observed.
Yeah, put an initiative out there. And then
just
let
ask.
the people vote.
What's so hard to ask?
Yes.
Ask.
Yeah, but we know better.
Yeah, of course.
That's the mentality.
We know. Yeah, it's the government mentality.
And now we have data to back our we know better.
Well, yeah, your data is telling you clearly don't know anything, right?
So real quick before we go, Alex, Big 7. Number 3 is human rights.
Number 3 is human rights. And when you're looking at human rights, there are things that we are all born with regardless of color. And we've seen that through the use of data and many other things, it's not respected in many facets all over the world. So how do we come together collectively with our data, defining it ourselves to say, these are the rights. This is what we want to do, what bucket we want to be in, how we see our own future, how I decide I want to be policed, how I say what my security looks like. That's that human right. We all have the right to live and be safe and make our own choices and be responsible. That's on us. We're born, we're human beings. We're all given that, right? But now it's not for someone else to define that for us. And so when you start to lose that sort of human right there, and it becomes a government right,
now we have an issue.
Now we have an issue.
Yeah. So Big 7, how can someone, if they say, I agree with you, how is TARTLE helping human rights, and how can I be a part of TARTLE?
Glad you brought that up. So say, for instance, we have here Amnesty International on the back. Maybe Amnesty International comes on TARTLE and they say, we have a data pack we want to ask you about surveillance in New York City to New York people. Great, you can fill it out. Amnesty International is going to pay you for that data. And if you want to double down, so after you've shared that data with them so they can act upon it, you can say, great, I have all these earnings I've had from sharing my data on TARTLE. I want to donate them back to Amnesty International because I back up. I'm an activist for what they're doing. That's something I can align with. In a matter of 3 button clicks on the marketplace, you can do that. And that's how you can act upon those things within the Big 7, within human rights. If you don't like this sort of thing going on with people tracking your faces and you want the human right of other people that sit outside of your own socioeconomic or demographic area, go ahead, help them out. Do that by sharing your data and sharing your earnings back to those things you care about. You do that on tartle.co.
Yeah, TARTLE.co.
Thanks.